right, welcome everybody. My name is Adam Holt. I am the CEO and founder of AssetMap. I want to welcome Dr. Jack Singer to our program today. Hello, Dr. Jack.
Hello, Adam. It's great to be here, and I really appreciate all of the help you and your team, Leah, Jean, and your technical people. It's been fabulous working with you.
Oh, that's great to hear. I'm excited about that. I'm sure LJ is as well. So thank you everybody for those of you attending. As Dr. Jack knows, and everybody here is actually on mute, so we won't hear your dogs barking in the background. This is a little bit of a different take. As many of you know, we've been running webinars twice a month for our community of financial professionals, trying to bring new ideas and concepts, whether we're doing them here at AssetMap or ideas of how to work with different communities, from business owners to LGBTQ, special needs kids, but also we've been having this really interesting opportunity to meet so many people, especially in this new digital community. And when we uncover people who are really making a difference and doing something different, and we can contribute at that, then that's awesome, and we want to make that available. And that's why we've asked Dr. Jack to participate today. With that, I'm not going to talk very much today, which maybe is a blessing for some of you, but you should know that the two of us found a certain level of kinship around, we'll call it a mindset. And so just for those of you to understand, Dr. Jack has a very storied background, and just to kind of give you a feel, he has his doctorate. Obviously, he's a Dr. Jack. That's a real doctor in industrial and organizational psychology, postdoctorate in clinical and sports psychology. A very interesting way to get to where you are today. And if any of you get the opportunity to listen to his videos online, you can find out how he worked in sports with sports professionals and so forth. He's renowned for his expertise in helping financial advisors now catapult their careers. What he used with Olympic gold medalists now is being used with hundreds of professional athletes. It's really transferable. He's written now 4 books, I believe, hundreds of articles on the topic of mastering stress, and that seems to be obviously your niche. And I think that some people have a little bit of stress in their lives these days, so it's very timely. You can see Dr. Jack on programs like CNN and Fox and ESPN and a whole bunch of other programs and media guides. And I think you're all going to find an incredible outlet here of actionable steps that Dr. Jack can help us with. Now, in terms of what does this have anything to do with AssetMap, I think that I would contribute this, which is mindset matters, and so does intentionality, right? And I know from my own perspective, AssetMap is really designed around the whole idea of delivering financial planning and advice around intentionality. Why do you have this? Why do you not have that? Have you thought about doing this? And can I bring ideas to the table? And that, along with the fact that if you really understand a client's why, as well as your own why, you tend to be more intentional about what you're doing and how to deliver advice and be intentional in your efforts. And of course, probably the most exciting thing about what we're going to share today is actionable techniques, right? Not just theoretically, we should do this. We don't want to should all over you. We want to talk about what can you actually do? What specifically can you do in order to help your condition? And that's the same thing that's true in financial advice, isn't it? We want to deliver actionable techniques, not just theoretically you should save. Let's talk about how specifically we should do that and how do we illustrate it. And of course, the real big mission of today is to how do we grow together since we're all so separated. Is this an opportunity for us all to collectively grow and contribute to the bigger community by investing in ourselves and then of course helping others? So that's really where we have alignment with Dr. Jack. And with that, I want to give you the stage, Dr. Jack. I'm excited to hear what you have to say. I've got my pen ready. And with that, let me hand it off to you.
Well, thank you so much, Adam, and AssetMap and all of your people for making this such an easy way to impart information to your valued clients and maybe potential clients with this program that I consider to be very valuable and important for everybody today. My plan today is to teach you a proven blueprint for building resiliency and thriving during challenging times. When I say a proven blueprint, we're talking about psychological research that's cutting edge. That's the information I'm going to provide for you today. Now, because I only have about 30 minutes to give you all of this information, I may be speaking a little rapidly, ladies and gentlemen. I apologize for that, but I want you to have the information. But fear not, You can email me if there's anything you're confused about or you want to know more about or you didn't understand it. I'm going to give you my email address. We'll give it to you again at the end. It's drjack@advisingtheadvisors.com, drjack@advisingtheadvisors.com. So you'll be able to catch up on anything you may have missed out because of my rapid talking and so forth. And I don't use slides, so there are things you just have to listen to me, and I think it'll resonate with all of you, the kinds of things I'm going to talk about. The other thing is that everything I'm going to talk about and much more is in this book, The Financial Advisor's Ultimate Stress Mastery Guide. My book, it's one of the only book of its kind. It's a game changer. And I agreed with Adam and all of the folks on the webinar today that I would offer that. It's a $37 book. If you're interested, I'll give it to you for $15. So all you have to do is send me an email again telling me what you're interested in and interested in the book, and I'll make that happen. So we're going to do that. The third thing that we're going to do is I'm going to do a raffle from everyone who sends me an email and says they'd be interested in a complimentary coaching session, completely free, confidential. I'll draw the first 7 or 8 names and give those people a free coaching session. So again, email me if you want the book, if you want more information, if you had a question that's not going to be answered today, or you didn't feel comfortable asking in front of everyone else, or if you're interested in a free coaching session. So that's the end of the pitch for me. We're going to talk about the same exact program, or part of the exact program that I've conducted for 3 Olympic gold medal winners and hundreds of elite athletes during my 40-year career as a professional sports psychologist. And like elite athletes, I consider all financial advisors to be champions, most of whom really never succeed to work up to their potential, just like most athletes don't, because of lack of confidence and fear of failure or fear of the unknown or self-doubt, and mainly because of stress. What I'm going to share with you today involves cutting-edge research showing you how to finally take charge of your stress and minimize it, regardless of the challenges you face. We'll do Q&A at the end, so write down your questions or put them in the chat or put them in the Q&A on here. Just keep a note because Adam's going to provide plenty of time for Q&A at the end. So what am I going to teach you? I'm going to teach you the #1 cause of any stress you will ever experience. You may say, well, how does Jack know what my stress is? Well, I'll tell you, you'll find out. I know what all of your stresses are. The #1 cause, because how you deal with stress is one of the most important determinants, not only of how you will perform in your career, but also it will determine how long you live. Yes, the health connection between stress and how you deal with stress and your health and longevity. I have a whole other program, by the way, that I do for client events. You know, the client events you have, it's called How to Live Much Longer Than Your Kids Hoped You Would. It's a silly title, but it's a serious subject. I have a whole program on the 10 ways that people who live past 100, the things that they do that you can all start to do right away. So if you're interested in a client event, you can contact me about that as well. Secondly, I'm going to teach you how to engage what I call a warp speed mental toughness actionable skill for quickly reducing your stress, your self-doubt, your worry, your anxiety, whenever these emotions creep in. So in short, I'm planning on teaching you today how to release the potential of success that lies within each one of you, which gets buried under stress, self-doubt, worry, and anxiety. We all think we know what causes stress. So let's do a little poll. LJ, if you can put the poll up there, I want to see what people think causes most of their stress these days. Okay, so which of these things do you think causes your most of your stress? Is it market uncertainty and volatility, the ongoing pandemic and its consequences, dealing with difficult clients during these challenging times, the current political climate in the United States, or perhaps all of the above?
Coming in at about 47%, seems to be the most popular for all of the above. 5% are saying market uncertainty and volatility, 19% the ongoing pandemic and its consequences, 17% dealing with difficult times during these difficult clients during these challenging times, and 12% stating for the current political climate in the U.S.
Okay, thank you very much. If you can, there you go. Okay. Well, here's what's going to surprise all of you. The reality is that none of those things cause your stress. Now you may be saying, scratching your head, what do you mean none of these things cause my stress? No, your stress is not caused by market uncertainty or volatility. It's not caused by the ongoing pandemic. It's not caused by dealing with difficult clients. It's not caused by the current situation in the United States. The reality is it's not even caused by any other factors you can think of, like how your life is disrupted because of COVID-19, about how you have to deal with your family 24/7 now, which you didn't have to do before, and demands that your family have on your time that perhaps they didn't have before because you're there all the time. No, it's not caused by any of these things, ladies and gentlemen. And the fact of the matter is that what I'm sharing with you now is probably the most important discovery in the field of psychology and psychotherapy in the last 50 years. We know now, the reality is that what causes your stress is the conversation you have in your head about these events. Events and situations don't cause anything. The actual cause is the conversation, the self-talk you go through about these events, the self-talk about market uncertainty, the self-talk about what if this client is unhappy with his or her portfolio, the self-talk about what the current political climate may mean for you or the stock market or whatever. The reality is you don't have much control over your business. I'm sorry, the reality is that you don't have as much control over your business than you had prior to COVID-19, but you do have control over the way you look at this and the way you interpret it and the things that you say to yourself. So it's always the conversations that you have in your head, and that's what I'm going to teach you about today. That's the biggest discovery. So we now know if someone comes in to see a psychologist or psychiatrist complaining of anxiety, depression, anger, frustration, irritability, mood disorders, you name it, we can find out very quickly what caused it by asking them what the conversations are, what are the patterns of the conversations that they have in their heads about situations that happen in their lives. And then once we know what those conversations are, we can help to quickly correct it. It's been a revolution in the field of psychotherapy where people now can cure their problems and remove their emotional disorders within a matter of weeks than it used to be years. So here's the takeaway. Most of our deficiencies, limitations, and problems are really based on our self-talk. And the good news is that you can control the self-talk once you recognize what these habits are. So it's that little voice in your head that constantly is talking to you, most of the time in negative terms. And we'll talk about what that means and how we recognize it and what we can do about it. So let me give you a quick example from my own life. It was a beautiful day in San Diego. It was June. My wife and I were boarding a plane from Maui, Hawaii. It was a very exciting day for us because I was invited to speak at an advisor program. I was a keynote speaker for high producing advisors, 5 days free at Maui at this wonderful resort, plus they were paying me a speaker fee. So everything was wonderful. We were thrilled. Everyone on the plane is going to Maui, so they're all happy and the plane takes off. Shortly after takeoff, my wife goes up and uses the restroom. She comes back and sits down. She's sitting near the window to my left. I'm on the aisle. I get up and I use the restroom. Then I come back and I sit down. Shortly after I sit down, the young lady sitting across the aisle from me is feverishly writing a note on the little napkins that come on the airplanes. And she's looking at me as she's writing the note. And I'm saying to myself, why is she looking at me? Is she sending me a note? Now my fantasies are taking off because first of all, I haven't had a note passed to me by a female since 6th grade. In fact, the notes that I got are so rare that I can remember her name. Susan Bonelli passed me a note in 6th grade telling me that her sister liked me or something like that. In any case, I'm fantasizing, what could this young lady who's young enough to be my granddaughter, she sees I'm with someone, I can't imagine what she's going to pass a note to me about. And so then she passes me the note. And here's what the note says. Sir, I'm sorry to embarrass you, but you have the toilet seat cover hanging out of the back of your pants. Oh my God. Now there's a situation. There's a situation which I now have to do something about. And I have a choice. One choice could be I am so mortified and embarrassed by what just happened that I need to face my wife looking out the window for an entire 6-hour flight, wrench my neck because I can't face this woman. And the other choice is, think about this, Jack. How can you use this as a positive? What can you possibly do now that can show you and this woman that there's a real positive here? And so what I said to her was, young lady, don't worry about embarrassing me. I thank you, because what you've just done is you've given me the opening for every speech I'm going to do from now on. I told her I was going to Hawaii to do a speech. That was going to be my opening. It's all about how you deal with and have conversations about difficult situations that happen in your life. So that's an example. And that's the epiphany I had, was I can use this in all of my speeches because it makes perfect sense. So let me first tell you that the conversations you have inside your head are based on thinking habits that have been unfortunately repeated thousands of times during our lives. And these thinking habits are frequently based on what I call iceberg core beliefs. I call them iceberg core beliefs because, like an iceberg, only a little bit of this is in your conscious awareness above the surface. Most of it is subconscious and you don't think about it, but these beliefs have been sort of hammered into you since you were a child or an adolescent. Some examples of iceberg core beliefs are: asking for help is a sign of weakness. We're all products of our past history. I can't change the way I've always been. I'm stuck with this forever. There's a right and wrong way to do anything, and if I don't have the right way, if I'm not perfect, then I'm a failure. Everyone who knows me and believes in me thinks more strongly about me and my ability than I think of myself, and it's only a matter of time before they figure it out. That particular one, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, is what is called the imposter fear. Almost every professional, whether they're an athlete or a financial advisor or anything else, goes through the imposter fear, where you begin to doubt yourself and think that other people have a better impression of you than you have of yourself, because they're wrong and you're right, and sooner or later you'll be embarrassed. At the core of all of these kinds of iceberg beliefs is a feeling of unworthiness and a hopeless feeling that I can't change what there is and I'm always going to be this way. But you can change your iceberg beliefs. These are simply habits. It's your choice. You can change the beliefs that are not healthy. I call the beliefs I just gave you toxic thinking beliefs. We can change them to nutritious thinking beliefs. It just takes practice, like anything else you learn takes practice. And the goal is to create harmony between your mindset, your emotions, and your behaviors, so they're all working in sync, just like an orchestra works in sync. So if you change the way you think about yourself, you can change what you believe about yourself. And once you change the beliefs you have about yourself, you can change your internal pharmacy, believe it or not, which impacts your health, your longevity, and the success you have in work. So the most important skill that you can ever learn for both your business success and your overall health and longevity is to manage your stress by getting rid of poisonous, toxic self-talk and changing it immediately. And that's what you're going to learn how to do today. So what do you think? Are you a hoarder of more negative thoughts than positive ones? Whichever ones you hoard are going to grow into trees and then forests. And most people, by habit, are hoard negative thoughts. You can't be positive and negative at the same time. One or the other must prevail. So if you can change negative thoughts instantly to positive ones, that's what the key to success is. And what are negative thoughts? Anything that starts with the two worst words ever put together in the English language: what if. Anytime you say to yourself, what if this happens? What if this client is on the phone? What if I don't have an answer for this person? What if my kids are angry at me because I'm not spending enough time with them? Anything with what if is almost always followed by a negative thought, which leads to stress. Or I shouldn't have done this, or why didn't I do that? Or I'm so stupid, or I hope I don't do this. These are negative, toxic, irrational beliefs and thoughts that drive our emotions, including stress. Now, the average person has 60,000 thoughts a day, believe it or not. Research shows that the vast majority for most of us are negative and lead to self-doubt and worry, insecurity, and lack of confidence. And the brain is wired to deal with negative thoughts 1,000 times faster than positive thoughts. Why would that be? Well, it goes back to the day when we lived in caves and we had to fight off predators or hunt down our food. The brain is there to be aware of emergencies very quickly, so it's wired in 1,000 times faster than pleasant thoughts. So having negative thoughts is normal, but what's not normal is we don't have to hunt down our food anymore. We're not fighting predators every day. So why would we want to turn on the same fight or flight system in our brain if we had those kinds of emergencies going on? So this is what's going on. And the important thing is every time you have a negative thought, it could be a simple one like, I don't like the traffic today, or I don't feel like waiting in lines, or I'm impatient, or I can't get someone on the phone, or my child is asking me to do this and I'm feeling guilty because I don't have the time. Whatever the thought may be, each time you have that thought, the default position in your brain is this could be an emergency. It doesn't know if it is or not until you deal with it. So because it could be an emergency, it does everything that it should do in an emergency, which is shut down all systems that are not necessary right now. All the energy has to be focused on fight or flight. And one of the systems that gets shut down is your immune system, because no energy needs to be working on your immune system if your life is being threatened right now. And so if you have 30, 40, 50 negative thoughts a day that run through your mind, ladies and gentlemen, and each time your immune system gets shut off for a short period of time, that is why people under stress, because if you're under stress, you haven't controlled those thoughts. People under stress get ill, and it not only can cause an illness, it certainly can exacerbate an illness. And there's a ton of research showing this. So because the immune system gets shut down in the fight or flight, and because you're turning on the fight or flight every time you have a negative thought, that's where all the health issues come from. Let me give you some examples. If you're in the fight or flight where your brain thinks that you're in an emergency, one of the things that it does is it takes blood away from your gastrointestinal tract and moves it out to your arms and legs for the quick fight or flight action. You're either going to flee or fight off somebody. And so if they're doing this 30 or 40 times a day and blood is leaving your GI tract, that's why people develop colitis, gastritis, irritable bowel syndrome, and those problems because of that blood leaving. If your muscles are continually tightening up because your brain thinks you need to be in the fight or flight, that's where muscle tension comes from, including tension in your neck, headaches, jaw pain from grinding your teeth, and TMJ problems. Those are caused by the turning on the fight or flight frequently. If glucose is continually spilling into your bloodstream every time you have a negative thought, so you have the energy for fight or flight, imagine what happens if you're doing this 30, 40 times a day during your whole life. That's where diabetes and other endocrine problems come from. So you can look at every system in the body and you can see how it's actually impacted by your thinking. Again, keep in mind, I do a client event to teach all of this to your clients. What a wonderful value added that would be for your clients. And I teach them much more, how to live much longer with many other techniques that I have time to teach for you today. So if you're interested in that, again, email me at drjack@advisingtheadvisors.com. Now, we know the power of the human mind and what you think and how it impacts the body. How do we know that? Think about placebos. All the research that's done with placebos where they're testing a new drug, like if they're testing a drug for COVID-19, they take a group of people randomly selected who think they're getting the medication, but they're getting something that's sugar and water. There's no benefit to it whatsoever. Well, why does a large percentage of people getting these sugar pills or injections, why do they get better? How could that happen? It's happening because they're convincing themselves they're taking something that's going to help them now, and that's actually changing the pharmacy in your body. There's tons of research on this. Breast cancer victims with the exact same diagnosis and the exact same longevity prediction, the ones who are hopeful and think positively live an average of 7 years longer than the ones who give up and decide the doctor must be right, I've got a terminal case, with the exact same diagnosis. There's more of this research coming out every day. So what we want to do is learn how to ward off negative emotions by recognizing and challenging destructive, toxic trigger thoughts that cause self-sabotage and self-condemning. And you can do this with easy to do steps, such as you can write down negative self-defeating thoughts once you become aware of them. Don't judge them, just recognize them. That's the first step. Like, I hope I don't do this, or I shouldn't have done that, or I don't know how to do this, or what if this happens? Those are those kinds of negative thoughts. So what I'm going to do is teach you this warp speed technique now to kind of close this out. And this is a technique called mental toughness that I have used with every athlete I've ever worked with. Most of them tell me that they do this before their games or their matches, and it works much better than music and things like that. The other thing that I do for them, by the way, which I do for all of the advisors I coach, is I teach them self-hypnosis, because we can convince ourselves to do things by thinking that we can do things, and that's a powerful technique I've used with every athlete and most of the financial advisors I work with as well. I make hypnotic recordings for them. So let's talk about this warp speed mental toughness routine. You know, if a steaming hot potato fell into your hands, you'd get it off as soon as you could. And you can do the same thing with destructive thoughts, just releasing them as fast as you can. So this is a 5-step routine. And again, if you don't get a chance to write all this down, I'll try to speak a little more slowly now, but if you don't get a chance to write all of this down, then you can email me and I'll be happy to send it to you. But step number 1 is, as soon as you recognize you're having a negative self-defeating thought, like, you know, what if this happens? Or I can't believe I have to deal with this client, she or he is so difficult to deal with. As soon as you recognize you're having a thought like that, you need to stop. And in the beginning, I'm going to tell you to write it down. After a while, you won't have to write it down, but I'm going to tell you, just write it down. What is the thought that I'm having? And so I can recognize that these are negative, self-defeating thoughts. What is the thought that I'm having right now? So you just have to write that down. And once you write it down, I want you to stop that thought dead in its tracks. Now, how do you stop that thought dead in its tracks? You wear a rubber band. And the kind of rubber band I recommend is the kind that comes in the mail. It's called a number 64 rubber band, actually. And you simply wear it on your wrist. It hangs loosely on your wrist. And as soon as you recognize you're having these negative thoughts, you snap the rubber band. You may have to snap more than once because these habits have been well developed over thousands of repetitions. But we want to snap the rubber band and therefore stop the thoughts dead in their tracks. Once you do that, you take a series of what we call diaphragmatic breaths. Breathe in through your nose to the count of 4, hold it for 4 counts. Big exhale out through your mouth to the count of 7, like you're blowing out through a straw. Practice it now by folding your hands over your stomach. If you're doing it correctly, your stomach will expand when you breathe in, it will contract when you breathe out. Breathe in 1, 2, 3, 4, hold it 2, 3, 4. Big exhale out through your mouth to the count of 7, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's right. That's what you do to do diaphragmatic breathing, where you're forcing yourself to breathe through your diaphragm, the same method that professional singers and musicians learn to do to get a full volume of breath. So the next step after you've done the breathing, which is to calm you down, is the most important step. The most important step is to take those original thoughts that you had and revise them into something more rational. So let's say, for example, one of the original thoughts you had was, I can't believe that my children have to do this learning online and they're not able to go in school and socialize, and this is awful and I don't know where it's going to end. Well, once you recognize that that's one of the thoughts that's causing you stress right now, you can change that thought. You can reframe it, we call it, into something more positive, like, this is only temporary. We're not going to have COVID for the rest of our lives. But what have my children learned in the meantime? They've learned a very valuable skill that they can use in college, because in college, a lot of this is done online. It's done virtually, especially if your child can't attend one day or so forth, or they're an athlete and they travel, then they get all of this material online like they're learning how to do now. So that's a way to look at this, to rationalize it in a very positive way. Or let's say your thought was, what if the market crashes, after the election results are finalized and the country realizes that the economy is not going to come back, or whatever that thought may be in your mind. How would you change that to something more nutritious? A, you would say, I don't have any evidence to support the fact that that's going to happen. It's just a thought I have. And B, even if it does happen, I know the history of the stock market. I explain it to all of my clients. It always comes back, and there may be bumps and obstacles and things like that, but it always comes back. The economy will grow again. I don't have to worry about this. I can do preventive measures with my clients' portfolios to put stop gaps in there. I can even go into Asset Map and use that, because that will help me dramatically in my work with my clients. So there are all kinds of things you can do and say to yourself that will help you to change the original thought that caused the problem in the first place. So step number one actually is recognize when you're having a negative emotion. Step number one, negative emotion. I'm anxious, I'm worried, I'm stressed, I'm angry, I'm frustrated, I'm upset. As soon as you recognize it, what was I just thinking? And write down those thoughts. Then you say to yourself, I need to stop that kind of thought right now. That's when you snap the rubber band. Once you snap the rubber band, you do the breathing in and out a few times until you've calmed yourself down, and then change the thought. And the other thing you can do, by the way, while you're changing the thought, is challenge the thought with logical thinking. Like, is this just emotional on my part, or do I have any evidence to support this thing I'm afraid is going to happen? Has this ever happened before? And if so, how did it end up? Most of the time you realize by challenging the thoughts, you're just worried about something, but there's the probability of it really happening is very slim and none. And again, I can send you a slide of all the ways to challenge your thoughts. All you have to do is send me an email at drjack@advisingtheadvisors.com. But ladies and gentlemen, I've taken 30 minutes of your time to teach you something that if you start practicing it, will have a major impact on your life. You will find that you will no longer continue down the same road of stress-producing thinking, and you can teach it to your spouse, your partner, your children. This is the most important skills that most people can learn. It will help them not only in their career, but to have a much happier life, and certainly, as we've discussed, a much healthier life. So with that, I think we'll go to the final 3 slides that you have on there, which gives my connection information and some of the goodies that I'm going to give you today. I'm going to randomly select 8 advisors who email me and say they want a free coaching session. I'll wait a few days until I get these emails, and then I'll pull 8 of them. For those of you who are watching this later, that you weren't here for the original one and you're watching the recording, feel free to send me your emails. I'll do another random drawing after a while after you've done that. If you'd like a copy of this book, The Financial Advisor's Ultimate Stress Mastery Guide, I'll be happy to send you the e-version of this for $15. You just have to email me. And thirdly, I have a course. I have a course called How to Develop the Mindset of a Champion Financial Advisor. I will give anyone, I'll tell you what, Adam, you and your group have been so great to me, I'll give them a 20% discount. How's that? I'll give them a 20% discount. 20% discount. If you're interested in that course, just send me a note, say, how do I register or learn more about the course? There's no obligation, but if you want to do it, see, he did it right away, changed it to 20% before I changed my mind. It's all already done. Okay,
it's recorded.
So, and that'll be great for you. And you get 12 continuing education credits for this, believe it or not. So I give you a voucher where you can get 12 continuing education credits. So it's a no-lose situation. There's no course like this of its kind. As 6 modules, you can take it as often as you want, take as long as you want. You get the CEs up front, and what's to lose? It doesn't get better than that. So I'm ready to open it up to questions now, Adam, to your wonderful audience.
Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Jack. That was really fun. And you know what was awesome about that, folks? It doesn't have to be a diatribe of so much information. This is really actionable snippets that you could go put into practice today. And I know that several of you actually put in the chat that you're planning on sharing this recording when we have it with your other people in your life that might need to hear it. I was thinking of a couple people that need to actually listen to that as well. They probably wouldn't hear it from me in the same way, but thank you for actually creating that opportunity for us to share that knowledge and to be more mindful of how we can actually do something about this. So this is great. I mean, I heard some fantastic comments that are takeaway. I did try to take notes, I'll be honest with you. I love this idea of iceberg beliefs. Are they toxic or nutritious? I thought that was definitely new. That we tend to hoard negative thoughts. We think too much about what if. It actually affects our immune system. I know several people in my world that have actual autoimmune diseases, and I can see the connection to that. Not to say that we just gave him medical advice, but you know, it makes a lot of sense. So I'm really thank you. So let's do this. Anybody who has questions, please take an opportunity on the right-hand side of your control screen. Put in those questions, and then we'll read them off to Dr. Jack. And that'll be a way. I'm sure other people have similar questions. Let me see if I can pop this out here. Okay. All right. So I don't know if you can read this, but I'm going to read them to you, Dr. Jack. That's fine.
Yeah, I'm not seeing any questions to read. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to do this. Hi, Dr. Jack. I am a triathlete, wondering how the stress of that could be affecting me. That's from John.
Okay, well, first of all, John, thank you. Being a triathlete doesn't have to cause stress. It may cause, you know, a bit of positive stress. You know, there's negative stress and there's positive stress. The positive stress is when you're excited to do something, like the excitement I felt before I came on to this webinar. I can't wait to share this information. I don't label that as stress. I label that as excitement and motivation. So being a triathlete, the only stress that I could see could be physical stress if you get injured and things of that nature. But the other stress is realizing that you're going to perform your best at any moment. And that's what I've always taught to athletes, is how to perform your best at any moment so that you don't leave anything on the table. So I don't look at that as stressful. I look at that as an opportunity for you to take your God-given physical conditioning and all of your techniques and so forth, and to do the best you can at any time. The only time people who are athletes produce stress to themselves is if they feel they have to be perfect, if they don't come in first. You know, I've worked with college golfers, for example, who were ranked number 2 or 3 in the world, and they would get upset if they didn't come out number 1, and gymnasts and people like that. So that's the kind of self-induced stress. Most of you, by the way, didn't get a chance to talk about this, but most of you are type A personalities. I have a whole section in my book on this. There's nothing wrong with being a type A personality. The problem with type A personality traits that really need to be looked at is when it leads you to beating yourself up with negative thoughts, like if I'm not perfect, I feel like I failed. That's a tendency that type A people tend to have, and it translates into their sports as well. The only problems with type A people that leads to health problems and other issues is if they carry around a lot of hostility. So when I work with type A people, and the book tells you how to deal with this, it's the hostile part that we have to get rid of, not the fact that you're a workaholic and, you know, so forth. That's all fine, but it's the hostility and the hurriedness and cutting people off in mid-sentence because you don't have patience to wait for them to finish what they're saying. So I went off a bit on a tangent, John, but hopefully I helped you as well.
That's great. Well, hopefully nobody's hostility came out there with that. That was a great answer, and thank you. Thanks for asking that, John. It's interesting. I don't know if anybody heard what Jack just did. He just actually changed the word. He transformed the language from that anxiety to excitement, given the fact that it's a similar physiological experience. That really does change how you feel about it when you change the language you use. That's awesome. Great, some great comments. People appreciating. And here's the next question: what is your advice for new advisors building self-confidence, lowering stress when talking with different clients? We might have to interpret that one a bit.
Yeah, the first thing that happens, you know, when you're first starting off in any profession, if you don't have self-confidence, it's because you're giving yourself toxic messages. So with a new client, the toxic message could be something like, what if I don't have all the answers? What if I'm not skilled enough in knowing what I can offer to this client? What if the client entrusts me with his or her wealth management and I mess it up? This is the kind of toxic, self-defeating talk that you can beat yourself up with. So again, the book really addresses this much more deeply, and the course really much more deeply than I can say now, but it's recognizing when you have those thoughts and changing them. For example, you've taken the series tests and everything else you have to do to be a financial advisor. Why would you start doubting yourself that you don't know enough? Maybe you don't have as much experience, and that will come with time, and you can get a mentor to help you with that. But beating yourself up is where I come in to help people to stop doing that. It's very important that you recognize this. I've worked with so many advisors who've had exactly that problem. And it's that they allow these thoughts that erode their self-confidence to filter through. That's what we have to stop. You need to pat yourself on the back and realize you are a champion. Maybe you haven't shown it yet, but you have everything, all of the makings of a champion, all of the potential. Let me help you bring it out to the surface.
Yeah, That's really great. That's a great point. And I know that for so many advisors that typically get to this moment where they're questioning themselves, at least in my own experience with now working with thousands of advisors, one of the funny things to try to remember is that there are a lot of other people that believe in you. Sometimes you actually have to trust the 10, 20, 100 people who believe in you more than you believe in yourself, right? And so we're listening to the wrong voice in many cases. And I think you really profiled that well. That's great. Let's go to the next question. I'm going to go to the corporate questions last. What do you suggest to do in situations where snapping a rubber band and or breathing with the diaphragm breath may not be socially acceptable? What do you suggest to do in those situations?
The breathing is something that people don't have to notice. You don't have to be obvious about it. You're breathing anyway, so you can breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. People aren't going to recognize it. You don't have to be dramatic about it, but it's a good question. Snapping the rubber band. So what do I tell people to do when they can't do it? For example, many athletes can't be snapping a rubber band while they're in the middle of whatever they're performing. So I tell you to pinch yourself or slap your thigh. So if you're sitting in a board meeting, for example, or any kind of a meeting, you can pinch your thigh, you can slap your thigh, you can do anything to stop those thoughts. It doesn't have to be the rubber band. I suggest you use the rubber band in the beginning because that will train you to stop the thoughts once you recognize them. That's the key. Recognizing the thoughts is the first thing and stopping them is the second thing.
Got it. That's very interesting. So there's probably all kinds of different things you could probably choose to break that pattern. Several people asked about the Living Longer program. I put it back up on the screen so that you would all have Dr. Jack's email address. And it says the Living Longer Than Your Kids Want You to Work program. Is that virtual, in person? What's the cost? How many people does that work? What's
that's not quite the name.
Oh, okay.
The name I have is how to live much longer than your kids hoped you would. That's not work. It's a funny title telling you that you can really add longevity to your life by following 10 basic principles that have all been proven that people who live beyond 100 have developed, and they're all psychological principles. I mean, you can do all the diet stuff and exercise. We take all that for granted. But besides that, what can you really do psychologically? And so I came up with that client event because, frankly, I discovered over my years of working with advisors that most client events, which is, plate licking in the back of a restaurant, are usually an abysmal failure. You really want to do that to provide value for your clients and have them want to bring someone else who might become your client. So I said to myself, why not provide some real value where everyone will invite their guests? And so this is a program on life extension, the psychology of life extension. So it usually packs the house when I was doing these live. The place would be filled. Everyone would bring a relative or guest to listen to a nationally renowned psychologist teach you how to live longer. And the typical guest would say to him or herself, wow, the most my advisor ever does is do a wine tasting, and you have an advisor here who wants to help you live longer. Maybe I really need to rethink who I'm doing my business with. So just like I want people to think, why would Asset Map care about you dealing with your stress unless they genuinely cared about your success? So this is what it's a win-win situation. Now, in terms of cost, frequently you don't even have to pay for it. You're all listening carefully. Now, what? We don't have to pay for it? Well, you work with wholesalers, you work with insurance carriers, many of these groups are happy to underwrite it because they are going to be getting more clients. But if you want a basic cost for it, if I was doing it live, it would be $7,500 plus the transportation. Doing it virtually, it's $4,700, no transportation, just $4,700. And as I say, you probably can get someone to underwrite all or most of it for you. So it's really a win-win. You'll get new clients. They'll be thrilled with you. Your clients will be thrilled with you. Just email me at drjack@advisingtheadvisors.com and I'll send you more information on it.
That's fantastic. Great. Thank you for that. There are several people that have made some fun comments. They've been using the rubber band. They've gotten that guidance. It's a reminder again for them to actually do it. So that's great if we help remind people. One of our good friends, Lori, mentioned that she's going to buy the book and the course. She calls it tax deductible therapy. I thought that's pretty funny, especially.
I love it. That's got to go. What's her name? Her name
is Lori. I'm not
okay, Laurie, thank you so much. That's going in all my marketing. Tax deductible therapy. That's going in all my marketing.
I love it. That's great. It is great. I'm going to have to come up with my own funny statement, Laura. That was great. Is your Living Longer program, right, the one I massacred the name, is that presentation available in video or book format?
The program right now, everything is being done virtually or video. The book I have, you know, the Financial Advisor's Ultimate Stress Mastery Guide, is all of this material. And again, developing actionable skills to develop the mindset of a champion financial services professional. The course is a combination of reading material, templates, teaching you how to do like I've taught you one technique today. My book has 77 techniques. This is one technique. The course has most of those techniques in it. The course also has many videos. So the course is a combination of all of these things. And you can take the course just by itself, or there's other ways you can do the course and involve yourself in meetings with me at the same time. So there's different ways to do it. But they will get a 20% discount on whatever version they're interested in.
Got it. Well, here's a one. I think we'll have time for another 3 questions. So if you have your questions, throw it in there. Here's one that I think will help out. What do you do about hostility or jealousy? How do you reframe that self-talk?
Well,
Hostility.
it's interesting for a couple of reasons, because one of the reasons, which is probably not the intent of this person, is what do we do if we live with hostile people, you know, or we live with negative people? That's a whole other subject on how do you deal with people. And maybe if you want me to come back sometime, I will teach about that, about a communication skill to use with negative and hostile people, which is remarkable for your children, with your spouse, with your clients, with anybody, how to communicate with them. It's called active empathic listening. But if the person who asked this question is saying they are feeling hostility and they want to know how to stop it, again, the only reason you're feeling hostility or any other negative emotion is because you've been giving yourself a history of messages that are building hostility. For example, let's say somebody does something, let's say you have an employee who you just told him or her to do something and they do the opposite. The reason for that could be A, they didn't understand what you were telling them. B, they didn't hear what you were telling them. C, they were afraid of you, so they blocked you out. But the way you're interpreting that is they don't give a damn about what I'm saying. And they're not respecting me. And I'm paying them good money and look how they're treating me. That's what leads to hostility. So it's always the conversation in your head about the event. That's what you need to take charge of. Always ask yourself, is there another way I could be looking at this? What if I put myself in the other person's shoes? How else could I be looking at this if I look at it through him or her eyes? I get excited about all this because it all works. And, you know, it used to be when I first started as a therapist, you know, it would take months and months, sometimes years to help people. Now we're talking weeks because we can really get to the core right away.
Oh gosh, I love that. That's beautiful. I love this active empathic listening. I mean, I've got more time. I want to keep going. I'm happy to hear more, and I'm sure there's plenty of you on the call that you're staying on. I see we have really high engagement right now, and so people are actually absorbing this. So I think it's a great testament to the message, Dr. Jack. Sorry, there's kind of construction going on in the background here. A couple other questions I see here. Some commentary on. Many of us, obviously, in the business have been involved in athletics. I know I was a Division I athlete too, and I think that kind of those lessons and the coachability also I think parlays well for this business. But it's true, tending to think of the office as not just a competitive opportunity, but also a team-based opportunity, that we're not actually in it alone. We're part of other things. So several people are commenting that they wish they had thought of using a sports psychologist years ago, and so they think that's a good fit for you. Let's see if there's anything else that we are seeing here.
While you're looking, let me just give them an example. A female Olympic gold medal winner comes to see me, and she's preparing for the next Olympics. And she's already won the gold and several world championships since the last Olympics. My question to her is, why do you really need me? Seems like you figured this out. She looks at me as if I'm an idiot, which I was for asking the question, and says to me, Dr. Jack, don't you get it? So I've said to myself, I'm in big trouble here because I'm not seeing something. Okay, what don't I get? She said, do you have any idea what kind of pressure is on me now because my coaches and my family and everyone expects me to repeat? Do you know how hard that is? Aha. So now we're talking about the internal dialogue the fact that regardless of the fact that you've already proven to yourself that you have the physical ability, the technical ability, the experience to win gold, now you're beating yourself up with, what if I can't do it again? What if I'm disappointing people? There's where the stress came from. So again, we just had to work on our internal dialogue, the self-talk.
No, I love it. That's wonderful things. I think so. We're running out of time. So why don't we do this? We've done good questions and answers. As we've told everybody, this will be recorded. It'll be available to our community. And you'll be, well, where is it going to be? Well, it's going to be up here. If you were actually registered for this event, you'll receive an email letting you know that it is available. It'll be available on both Dr. Jack's outlets as well as Asset Maps. We have a site. It's called assetmap.com/webinars. And so to let you know that it's going to be up there with the 15 some hours of recordings, I think it's an hour or maybe 18 hours of recordings. You can go in there 30 minutes, an hour at a time and just really learn about all kinds of different things, not just financial planning, but also how to talk to CPAs and professionals about expanding your opportunities. So we've been very broad as to how we've approached our ongoing thought leadership. And upcoming in the next couple of weeks, we're going to continue to double down on how we deliver effective remote meetings. I want to compliment you, Dr. Jack, because you're doing some of the things we teach, right? You have a window in front of you, not behind you. You have a headset. You're very thoughtful about this. You are clear, concise. These are the types of things that we forget and take for granted. So we're going to be just teaching that on November 10th, 1 p.m., and also how to deliver financial planning in a remote environment. And then we also have our Accelerate series that Leah Jean will be teaching on November 19th about target map fundamentals, how to effectively tell somebody how funded they are in 30 seconds towards any financial goal, and how to understand the logic behind that. That's really critical. Today, we need to do speed planning for everybody. Everybody deserves financial planning, not just their top 25% or a select group of individuals. And the reality is that if we're not doing that for them, they're going to go elsewhere to get it. So let's find ways to engage people and help lift them out of whatever mess we find them in, because that is the bigger mission of what we do in financial advice. If you haven't figured it out, we help elevate people. We just use our specific skills, and we have to obviously believe in ourselves to be good leaders in this space. So with that, Dr. Jack, I want to thank you. You've been great. You've given well more than you were asked. You gave twice the value, and so I want to appreciate that and show a major respect. Please do Dr. Jack the grace of also reaching out to him and taking advantage of what he's made available to our community. Dr. Jack at advisingtheadvisors.com, his email. You can clearly email us if you can't figure out anything else, you don't know what to do, just email our team at hello@assetmap.com and we'll get you to the right place. Anything last you want to say, Dr. Jack?
Well, if they want to look at my website to learn other things that I do, like come into companies and work with them and things like that, it's drjacksinger.com.
Awesome. Very good. Well, until the next time, everybody, we hope you're safe and have a wonderful day. And we look forward to seeing you at the next event.